My name is Tommy, and there was a time when Christmas was my favorite holiday. That was until my 7th Christmas. I still believed in Santa at the time. Well, not just believed in him. I was obsessed with the idea of Santa. Most kids have that idea at least once, that they should stay up all night and wait for Santa, but I doubt most kids have ever actually done it. But this was the year. This was the year that I decided I would wait up for Santa for real. It was Christmas Eve night, a few hours after my family had left. I stayed up late like I always did, watching TV in my room. I think it was around 11 p.m. when my dad came to say goodnight to me. He always goes to bed early. My room was on the first floor of the house, and my parents' room was upstairs. I should note we lived in a huge house, and you couldn't really hear anything going on across the house. A little while later, my mom came up to tell me to go to sleep, and then shut my door. Of course, I didn't go to sleep. Instead, I got up from my bed and began to write a note for Santa to read. I only planned on secretly observing Santa. I didn't plan on speaking with him. I feared that if he caught me, he wouldn't give me any presents. On the note, I told of my love and appreciation for him, and what I wanted for Christmas in the future. I planned on placing this directly above the fireplace, just as soon as my mom would go to sleep, though. I grabbed some tape from my backpack and a flashlight from my desk. I then opened my door, tiptoed down the hall, and peered into the living room. I could see my mom placing presents under the tree. I tiptoed into the dining room and hid under the table, where I had a perfect view into the living room and the tree. This was the perfect spot to wait for Santa. After my mom finished putting presents under the tree, she grabbed a glass of water from the kitchen, shut the lights, and walked upstairs to her room. I got out from under the table and ran into the living room, taping the note above the fireplace. I got back under the dining room table and waited in the dark. The small light coming from the digital clock in the living room provided just enough light for me to see the tree and the fireplace. I waited and waited, but nothing happened. I felt myself starting to drift off until something brushed up against my leg. I shrieked and jerked back, turning around to see two eyes staring back at me in the dark. It was my cat, Jojo. I breathed a sigh of relief and shooed him off, for I thought he might blow my cover. He ran down to the den and out of sight. A while later, I heard my stomach growl, and I knew it was time for a midnight snack. I got out from under the table and walked to the kitchen, checking the time on the way. It was around 1:30 in the morning. I couldn't wait around any longer on an empty stomach, but before I could open the fridge, I heard a sound coming from the den. I thought it was just Jojo at first, until I heard the sound of boots walking on the tiled floor. It was Santa. My heart nearly stopped from excitement. The footsteps neared closer to the steps, and I quietly ran back to the dining room table to return to my hiding spot. The footsteps began walking up the steps from the den into the living room. I could barely control my excitement. I was actually witnessing Santa in person. As the steps entered to the living room, I could see the Jolly Giant. A huge man dressed in a red coat and black boots, holding a sack, stood next to the tree. He just stood there for a few moments before walking up to the fireplace. He noticed my note. He ripped the note off the wall and began to read it. Then I heard Santa chuckle to himself and proceed to sit down on one of the couches, and then he crouched down. I couldn't see what he was doing, but I heard him shuffling around with what sounded like a bag in a box. He finally stood back up and placed something under the tree. I had actually witnessed Santa leaving me a present. He then turned around, picked up his sack, and walked back down to the den until his footsteps faded away. I felt it safe to get up now, but I didn't want to open the gift yet, so I went straight back up to bed. I was satisfied. I got what I wanted. I fell asleep seconds after climbing into bed, and morning came fast. I jumped out of bed, eager to get to the tree. The TV in the living room was on, but nobody was in the room. Normally on Christmas morning, my parents were always there to greet me. I immediately ran to find the present that Santa left me, and I found it. But it wasn't wrapped. It was just a box with a note sitting on top. I picked up the note. It was the note I had written, but it had a small response from Santa. It said, I'm flattered by your admiration, Tommy. I hope you like the gift I left you. Go ahead and open it now. My heart started pounding with excitement. Suddenly, I heard my parents yelling from the den. I quickly checked to see what was wrong and realized that the backyard window was shattered, and in the background, I remember hearing a news report about some kind of psychopath murderer. With my 7-year-old maturity level, I still found my priority to be opening my presents. I walked back to the tree and ripped off the lid of the box, and my heart sank to my stomach. In the box, staring back at me, was the head of my cat Jojo. I dropped the box, but I couldn't even get a scream out of my mouth. The head fell out of the box, revealing another note at the bottom of the box, and I still, to this day, remember what it said. I hope you like your present, Tommy. Oh, and by the way, I know you were hiding under the table. See you soon, and remember, I see you when you're sleeping.